Hello, my name is Nicole from Crime Lies and Alibis. I decided to redo this video. I got a little too personal in my last one and didn't really like the flow of my, I don't know, the way it carried out. So I'm redoing it. This is for Kei'Mani Latigue, and this video is for educational purposes only, seeking justice for victims, and is intended for an adult audience. There is very sensitive information that is given in this video, very delicate. It was a heinous crime, and this poor girl deserved better. So, this is Kei'Mani. She was reported missing on March 18th, 2025, by her grandmother. Police interviewed both the grandmother and Kei'Mani's father, and I use that phrase very loosely. He goes by Darnell Jones Ogletree, sometimes just Ogletree, sometimes just Jones. Both surnames have been used interchangeably. I'm not quite sure why, but that's just the facts. I'm going to try and stay very fact-based in this because there's a lot of pointing fingers, if you will, at law enforcement, or not at law enforcement necessarily, at CPS. There's a lot of family members who are saying things against other family members. I'm not really interested in all that. I'm interested in what happened to this girl and what is going to happen to hold the person responsible for her death. So Kei'Mani was reported missing on March 18th, so last month, 2025. She was recovered out of a blighted home in Toledo, Ohio on March 24th, 2005, just a few days before her 14th birthday. On March 25th, her, again, using the term phrase loosely, father was located in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if a good Samaritan turned him in because they saw him and police were looking for him or how that occurred, but there was a shootout. He was shot by a police officer in the back. Oh no. He sustained injuries from that shooting and was recovering in a Columbus hospital until he was well enough to be extradited back to Toledo. This is him. Now, there are a lot of people who don't really understand how this works. His lawyer was arguing that he's not a flight risk because he doesn't have a passport, but I mean, let's be real. He already showed himself to be a flight risk because he took off from Toledo to Columbus. And I think he took off because there was a lot of inconsistencies in what he was telling law enforcement when she went missing. And he was the last known person to see her. He was said to have removed Kei'Mani from the home without her grandmother's permission. She was living with her grandmother. Again, not getting into any family dynamics here. The facts are that when she was very young, within the first few months of her life, whether it be her mother's choice or it was decided for her, Kei'Mani was not being raised by her mother. She was taken from her mother in the first few months of life, was living with an aunt, which would be her grandmother's sister, so great aunt, I believe. For whatever reason, that aunt could not care for Kei'Mani anymore, whether it be by choice or not, I don't know. That has not really been made clear yet. She went to live with her grandmother about a year or so ago. There were issues. A couple of CPS reports were made about the same incident. So it wasn't like there was a year's worth of reporting with CPS from the mother that was not followed on. but people have a lot of feelings about CPS. I'm not getting into those right now either. I have my own opinions, not getting into those right now either. But according to the records for Lucas County, there was only one complaint about the grandmother, and there had been an incident where she had allegedly spanked Kei'Mani. And that case was closed. There was no reason to believe that a further investigation needed to be done, which means they probably talked to Kei'Mani about it. But there wasn't like this repeated CPS coming out to the grandmother and doing nothing, and Kei'Mani should have been pulled from that home. That doesn't sound like it was the scenario. But this gentleman was seen in court today, April 18th, 2025. His lawyer was arguing that he is not a risk, a flight risk, because he doesn't have a passport. But the judge still chose to set his bond at $4 million. And this is what has people kind of in an uproar. It was $2 million for the murder, $1 million for kidnapping and abduction, and I think $1 million for the assault. So kidnapping, assault, murder. Now, it says no percent. So what that means is usually when there's a bond, like, hey, there's a $1 million bond, they can be bonded out with 10% of that 1 million or 20% or whatever. Sometimes you hear that someone has $1 million bond, but they can be released with 250,000. Not in his case. He was given a $4 million bond, and he can only get out of prison if somehow he comes up with $4 million. Super unlikely. Nobody is going to be handing this guy $4 million. And I say that because we're going to go to his victim, because I can't stand looking at him. He removed her hands. Allegedly, we don't know if it was him. He's still innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, or he holds accountability for his crimes. She was raped, either before or after death. That has not been made clear. He did cut off her hands, and he attempted to remove her head. She had very deep marks on her neck, and he was nearly successful. And I can say he because whether it was this guy or another, it was a male because of what DNA was left behind. And again, a lot of this stuff they haven't made public, other than he's the only person they've arrested. There aren't any other people that could have been an accomplice so far in her death. But it was gruesome. It was horrific. I don't know if he will be eligible for the death penalty. That's kind of sketchy in the state of Ohio right now. I have a lot of feelings on that too. Governor Mike DeWine has postponed the death penalty indefinitely. The last person in Ohio to be executed was in 2018, and this is because he believes that there needs to be a better method than lethal injection. There are a lot of states moving to firing squad. If people don't know what that is, I will give you a brief synopsis. So firing squad is not as fun as some people think it might be. The firing squad is literally a person is strapped to a chair. There's sandbags next to them. There's people standing in a row in front of some states or areas do 3, some do 5, some do 8. Up to 13, I think, is the most I've seen. I believe only one gun has a live round. The others are blank. There's a mask put over the person's head, and shots are fired. A shot is fired to the heart, and it is supposedly the most instantaneous they have been able to do. I have a lot of feelings about these people sitting on death row. I did a video on Sierra Joggin. Go check that out. Her killer. And I can't stand James Worley for a lot of reasons. But in interviews, he's like boastful. He thinks it's funny. He knows that his appeals will outlive him. He's been asking for a new trial and he won't get it. He was supposed to be executed in 2019. He's still alive. His new execution date is slated for May 25th, sometime in May. It's probably not going to happen because Mike DeWine won't figure out what needs to be done. There's over 100 that are incarcerated on death row in Ohio that are just sitting there waiting for him to come up with a decision. And it doesn't sound like he's even trying. It doesn't sound like he has any plans to pick a method. So my guess is probably that he doesn't like the death penalty and he's just going to sit on it until he's no longer governor. But I feel like he's been governor for a while. So I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like I'm not sure if Mr. Ogletree is going to be eligible for lethal or for the death penalty or not in this case. I wouldn't rule it out. This is the blighted home that they're talking about Kei'Mani was found in. Now, blighted is the word that they use for these rundown, unlivable homes. Kind of a weird backstory with this house. Apparently it had 2 separate fires. And I'm not sure when those fires were. A developer, I guess, bought the house in like 2022, I believe. They live in New Jersey. They've never been. They bought this property sight unseen. And the claim is that they were looking to turn it into a parking lot, which may be really useful in New Jersey, but this area of Toledo is residential. It's all houses. People will park in the street. I mean, it's so funny because they'll leave driveways empty, but they'll park in the road. A parking lot really isn't anything that's needed. So I'm not sure why they would buy a house, plan on leveling it, and turn it into a parking lot. It just seems like a waste because you're generating no revenue then. You're paying property tax on land that is a parking lot. An empty nothing. Like, I don't understand why, unless it's a tax write-off, which is possible, I guess. But I don't know why somebody would want to own property they're paying taxes on that they're not doing anything with. It seems weird. But they had no clue that she was found in this house because, again, they bought it sight unseen. They've never even been, it sounds like they've never even been to Toledo, Ohio. I have a friend who lives a couple blocks from here, and she said it's been really heavy and hard for all of, I mean, it really has been. This is hard for the community. I'm from the Toledo area. I don't live in Toledo, but I am from the Toledo area. I have lots of friends and family who live out there. And this is one of the more recent photos of the trinkets, toys, things that people have been leaving behind. These balloons, some say happy birthday. You can see a 1 and a 4 in there. She would have been 14 on her birthday was, I believe, the 28th. I think it was March 28th was her 14th birthday. And I mean, Kei'Mani was a sweet girl. People loved her. She had lots of friends. She was a very good student. Like, I think she had a 3.9 GPA, 3.8 GPA. Like, she was doing really well in school. She was thriving. She had friends. People really liked her. That's the grandmother. I meant to show her. This is the grandmother that reported her missing. sad. Let's see what this says. Heartbreaking. Oh my gosh. Of course there's an advertisement. Why wouldn't there be? Whatever.
We're continuing to follow the death of Kei'Mani Latigue. She's the 13-year-old who went missing earlier this month. Police found her body 6 days later inside a burned-out home in East Toledo. People have rallied around her since she went missing, and tonight more people came out to support one another as they process the tragedy. Andre Norrells joins us now in studio. Andre, is this about healing?
Yeah, Dan, people came to talk through what happened with professionals, with others by their side. And while we were asked to stay outside to let people find comfort and privacy, we heard from the community who did attend, and they say Kei'Mani's life touched their own.
Kei'Mani's death has brought awareness to everybody.
That includes Patricia Marshall. She came with her daughter, Sienna. She's a little younger than Kei'Mani. Marshall says she's been talking to her about what happened.
You talk to your children, have conversations with them, you know, not just hi and bye and they go to the room. Make sure you sit down. We sit at the table and we eat. Sit down and get to know your child.
They were just two of the attendees at the support group hosted at the East Toledo Family Center. Its motto, strengthening and serving the community one life at a time. And that mission was on display at a support group following Kei'Mani's death.
Events like this are tragic, and people have a lot of emotions around them.
Elijah Jones is with the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board. He says everyone grieves differently.
We often don't know what to feel, how to feel, what's right, what's wrong, but really all of those feelings are valid, and this is a place to come and process them.
It's a message echoed by Eddie Parker. He's a community liaison with the Ohio Attorney General's office and came from Columbus to encourage people to come together and talk.
In a crisis, it takes all of us to wrap around the community and the families, because that's where the healing starts.
That community was on display as Toledo City Councilman John Hobbs joined the discussion. He said city leaders have to pay attention when something like this happens, and he's listening to the concerns Toledoans are voicing.
We want to talk about this so that we can do everything we can do to prevent this from ever happening to anyone ever again.
As of now, this was the only support group planned, but additional meetings could be scheduled for a later date. Andre Norrells, WTWL 11.
Was really sweet. Also, again,
is Vanderbilt starting to thrive in this new?
Wow, that was loud. I'm sorry. So again, this is Darnell Ogletree Jones, whatever he wants to be called. He is the man who is being held accountable and has been apprehended. He was found in Columbus, Ohio. There was a shootout with police. He was shot. Oh no, and was extradited back to Toledo. He does face additional charges in Columbus, but it'll be hard to say if he's ever going to be extradited back there for those charges. I'm going to say maybe. If for some reason he doesn't strike a deal for life without parole, because that's really what if I were a prosecutor, that would be the only thing I'd be for. I'm only going to do any kind of plea deal with you if you're going to stay in prison forever, because that's where you belong. I am very much on the side of, if somebody is a sexual predator or an offender, especially for minors, there's no rehabilitation for that. Once you do something as heinous as he allegedly did, there's no rehabilitation. He's not going to be better in a year, 2 years, likely 10 years ever. He, I would think, would be a continued danger to the public. I mean, maybe, depending on his injuries, I guess. But I would not be interested in hearing anything other than spending life in prison. Personally, I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not anybody with law enforcement or of the like, but that's my thought. I wouldn't be interested in anything else. So if for some reason, I mean, $4 million bond is pretty serious. I don't foresee him going back to Franklin County to be tried for the charges in Columbus. He would have to magically be found not guilty or whatever in Toledo to then be taken down there, and then they could decide, we're going to throw this guy in jail, probably. So at the end of the day, this guy isn't getting out of protective custody of the state, I guess, if you will, anytime soon. So one more look at this sweet girl. This is Kei'Mani. Let's look forward to hearing some positivity for her and an outcome that kind of brings not only peace and awareness, but also shed light on the things that are happening that shouldn't be. Thank you. Like, subscribe, and look forward to future videos from me.